Hello out there, and first impression video today about this Spyderco Sliverax. So yes, my Sliverax came in, the one-eyed jack is on its way back home to where it should be, and now I have the knife that I was looking forward to. The Sliverax, a new for 2017 design by Paul Alexander, and if you were following my channel last year at about this time, the Ouroboros came out, and it was one that I was really looking forward to as well. Another Paul Alexander design. And I just really like the look of the handle and just the general aesthetics of the knife, were appealing to me. And I remember doing the review of the Ouroboros and generally liking the knife, but knowing that there were a few things that could have been done better and that, I wished I would have seen for the $170 price point that knife came in at. And really happy to know right off the bat that with this Sliverax, there are a number of those opportunities that Spyderco has grasped and improved from that previous Alexander design. So we'll get into all that in just a minute. Also definitely going to talk about the specs, and that's where we'll start. The details of the knife. All right, so what we have here is a cutting edge of 3.48 inches. It looks like 3.5 to me, guys, but 3.5 inches, S30V blade steel, flat ground. Really nice, attractive blade shape. And a little bit unique, but still seems like it will be very functional for a variety of tasks. And when we close the knife, you can see, first of all, that we are running on some bearings in here, which is nice. The knife is still breaking in, so it is pretty smooth right now, but there's definitely a lot more that it can do, and we'll see how that progresses over time. We have opening with the traditional Spyderco hole, and then also a flipper. So the knife flips pretty nicely, and again, that just continues to get better the more and more that I open it. And as you work your way back, you can see we have this flow-through construction and some stainless steel liners that are nested, and there is some milling in those liners, which is pretty nice, so that helps cut weight. And while we're talking about weight, let's bring in the scale and see what we have. And, having a knife with this kind of handle shape at 3.26 ounces, that really does help cut the weight, because you can see just this huge gap of material that would have added to what we are carrying. But, that does help cut it and reduce it and make it just a pretty nice lightweight knife for the size. Our handle material here is a G10 with a carbon fiber laminate. And while I will talk a little bit more about this in a few minutes, I will say and show you right off the bat that this is just done really well. Spyderco continues to progress the quality of their G10 carbon fiber laminate, and it's just very nice, grippy, comfortable. So excited about that. And then you can see we have this 2-position pocket clip. It is tip up only, the traditional wire clip. I'm a big fan of it. I know some people are not, but it is what it is. So that is basically what we have with the knife. Just a really nice looking, classy, full-size folder. Certainly going to be good in use. And one of the reasons for that is that we have this negative blade angle. All right, and so a negative blade angle occurs, and it's just a term to explain that when you're holding the knife in your hand, as I get into ergonomics, when you're holding the knife in your hand, your forefinger here is actually slightly above the cutting edge of the knife. And you can see it's very minor, but if I bring in another knife here, and might as well do a size comparison, here's the Spyderco Sage 5. When I bring in another knife, look at where the forefinger is versus the cutting edge when you have this knife in your hand. All right, a lot lower. Well, the Sliverax, because of that huge choil, brings your forefinger further up, and what that will do for you when you are using it is just make the knife a whole lot more comfortable over a long period of use, and also just make it easier to hit certain angles in your cutting tasks. So should be a very, very comfortable knife. And holding it in the hand, I feel very comfortable. It feels fantastic. It locks in really nicely because there's really nowhere for your hand to go. There is no jimping, but I don't know. I don't think that's really any kind of issue at all for me. I'd like it, but I don't feel like I'm losing any kind of grip or traction by not having it. So there's that. And the one thing about the knife in terms of the ergonomics is not a lot of, multiple configurations or ways that you can hold the knife. Bringing back the Sage 5 for a quick second, you could hold it like this, choke up, use that forward choil, a number of ways that you can hold the knife to use it depending on the task you're trying to accomplish. But here, it's really just going to be this. Maybe I was experimenting with things, maybe for finer detail you could choke up like that. That could work. But I don't know. I don't know if that's something you'd want to do. So yeah, if you get this knife, I would be prepared to use it like this and maybe have to experiment if you're going to do something different. So there is that. But continuing on with the ergonomics and touching back on this carbon fiber G10 laminate, just really, really impressed with it, guys, because I've seen the way that Spyderco constantly improves this stuff. And that's what they call it. They call it CQI, constant quality improvement, with all of their materials. And going back to the Sage 3 that I don't have, but I used to, the Sage 3 had this stuff, and the original Sage 3 was blue, but then they went to the carbon fiber G10 laminate, and it was pretty slick. And in my first ever review of this knife, the Sage 5, I talked about this stuff and how it has gotten a lot grippier and better, and how impressed with it I was on the Sage 5. And it's taken another step here with the Sliver Axe. So just really good traction, extremely comfortable, almost feels like it has the traction of G10 and the look of carbon fiber. And I like it a whole lot. Extremely impressed there. All right, so other stuff to talk about, especially when we're harkening back and remembering that Ouroboros. Some of the things that I just didn't care for were the materials at the price point you were paying. $170 was what the Ouroboros came in at. We had VG10 blade steel on that. We had G10, which was, functional and fine, but it wasn't anything great. And the production of this knife, the Sliver Axe, is in Taichung, Taiwan, instead of Seki City, Japan, like the Ouroboros was. And what I've found with the Taichung models is that usually you get better materials and better quality at a better price. And that's the case here. So this knife is $150, and I think it's a much better bargain than that Ouroboros was. So, Spyderco is able to get better materials in this knife and save about $20-25 for the consumer. So I definitely appreciate that, because I think this is a better knife and a better deal. So definitely a good thing there. One small, and I don't want to say that it's nitpicky, but one thing that I noticed right off the bat with this, especially with our compression lock, is that with a compression lock flipper, when you are disengaging the knife, the flipper has to come up through the locking mechanism in order to close it. So let me see if I can show you this with the Sage 5, since I have it right here. So Sage 5, knife swings shut, and you can do that. Everything's just fine. All right. But with the Sliver Axe, what's going to happen is when you swing it shut, depending on where your finger is on the compression lock, that flipper is going to come up and bump your finger at this point. So getting this knife to swing shut will be a little bit more difficult, let's say, than a regular compression lock folder, because that flipper can get in the way. So if you were to close the knife all the way in the back, that flipper can swing shut through it. But when you're in use, just using the knife, you probably won't be thinking about that. So, just something to keep in mind, because, yeah, it just isn't always the easiest thing to do. And it's not a big deal, but it's something that, when you have a really cool, smooth locking mechanism like a compression lock, you want to be able to close it in a cool way, and that flipper sort of gets in the way. So I do like the flipper, but it does hinder your ability to close it in that really neat kind of way. All right, so I think overall I've touched on all of the details that I wanted to hit. I mean, certainly this is one of those knives that will warrant a follow-up in a couple months of use, because, you know, just seeing how this this mechanism breaks in and how smooth it gets, and how this knife is, you know, in hand over long extended use is something that I'll be interested to learn for myself, and I'll definitely share with you. All right, so any other questions, comments, complaints, suggestions, let me know down below. I would love to hear from you. Love to hear if this is the kind of model that you'd be interested or into, or what you think of it, or what you think of it versus the Ouroboros. Any feedback, let me know. I'll get back in touch with you, and I will talk with you soon. Thanks again. Have a good one.